Digging deep into the Turkish economy, as far back as 1923, Turkey has operated a mixed economy, which contributes to economic development both through state-owned enterprises as well as private enterprises. The country's economy has transformed from one that is primarily agricultural to one where industry and services are the most productive and fastest-growing sectors. Now, 10 years into the 21st century, the services sector employed about half of the workforce, while agriculture and industry each accounted for about one-fourth. Has the economy gotten any better since then? Well, it's a little complicated to say this. But to know about this more, make sure to watch this video till the end. Hello everyone! Welcome to Country Economies Explained, a media channel that allows you to find out the reasons behind the economic situations of countries. So make sure to hit the thumbs up button and do not forget to subscribe to the channel. Also, press the bell icon to never miss an update from us. Having said that, let's get started from the 90s. Up until about 1950, the state played the lead role in industrialization, investing the majority of capital in railways, ports, and shipping facilities. And in basic industries like mining, metallurgy, and chemicals, it also invested in manufacturing, like food processing, textiles, and building materials. As a result, emerging countries were protected by tariff barriers, and foreign direct investment was discouraged. The economy continued to function largely independently, with foreign trade playing only a minor role. Several political developments in the early post-war period, like the emergence of multi-party democracy and Turkey's adherence to the Western alliance, profoundly affected the economy, which became more open to foreign influences. However, large amounts of foreign aid, mostly from the United States, helped finance agricultural expansion and import agricultural, industrial, and transportation equipment. And the private sector played a bigger role in growth. There was a lot of state intervention, mostly through loans to private firms, and the country was guided by a series of 5-year plans. But by the late 1970s, the economy was plagued by high inflation, lots of unemployment, and a trade deficit. Therefore, there were more shifts in economy policy during the 1980s, including encouraging foreign investment, setting up joint ventures, and reducing the state sector's relative importance. And by the 1990s, inflation was a big concern, and Turkey's per capita GDP remained below most countries in the Middle East and Europe. However, a 2-year economic monitoring program with the International Monetary Fund helped control the rate of inflation after inflation had reached almost 100% by 1997. But a financial crisis in 2000 to 2001 forced Turkey to accept another round of IMF-supported reforms. The economy grew steadily in the first decade of the 21st century until 2009, when the global economic crisis sent the country into a brief recession that was followed by a recovery. But apart from this, talking about the resources, the country has a wide variety of natural resources, but few occur on a large scale. And in addition to Iran, Turkey is the only country in the Middle East that has significant coal reserves, mostly in the Zonguldak field. The lignite industry is big. A small amount of oil is produced in the southeast of the country and in Thrace to the northwest, but it doesn't meet the country's needs, so it relies on imports. Electricity is generated from both lignite and oil, and hydroelectric resources are being developed like crazy. Most of the country's hydroelectric plants are on the Sakarya, Kemer, Kizil, and Seyhan rivers, as well as on the Keban and Ataturk barrages on the Euphrates. And almost all villages are connected to the national grid. Most of Turkey's metallic ores are iron, mainly from Divirgi in Sivas province, and chromite, largely exported. There are significant deposits of manganese, zinc, lead, copper, and bauxite in the area. About 1/3 of Turkey's land is used for agriculture, much of it extensively. Around half of the farmland is devoted to field crops and about 1/3 to grazing. Since the 1960s, these proportions have remained fairly steady, after a flurry of change in the 1950s, when tractors fueled a large expansion of arable land at the expense of grazing. And a smaller percentage of the land is devoted to vineyards, orchards, olive groves, and vegetable gardens. A majority of the land is cultivated with cereals. Majority of the cereal land is wheat, with smaller amounts of barley, rye, oats, corn, maize, and rice. The other big crops are cotton, sugar beets, tobacco, and potatoes. About 1/6 of the cropland is irrigated. The differences in agriculture reflect the differences in the physical environment, especially between the interior, where cereals and livestock are king, and the coast, where the high-value crops are grown. Despite its limited lowlands, the Black Sea coastlands are one of the most intensively cultivated regions on Earth. As corn is the biggest cereal and feeds a lot of cattle, besides hazelnuts, tobacco, tea, walnuts, almonds, pistachios, and citrus and other fruits, sugar beets, sunflowers, potatoes, and vegetables are also important. The Aegean coastlands are the most productive, commercialized, and export-oriented region with relatively little cereals. Turkey's main crop is cotton, and its biggest olive-growing area is along the Aegean coast. In fact, Adana Plain is an important cotton-growing area. Most of the country's elevated lands are used for livestock and cereals, mainly wheat and barley. The most favored areas, especially those with irrigation, have cotton, fruits, tobacco, hemp, sugar beets, and vineyards. Moreover, Turkey has a wide range of manufacturing. There are factories spread out over the country, although a high proportion of total output comes from just 4 regions: Istanbul and the area around the Sea of Marmara, the Aegean coast around Izmir, the Adana Basin, and the region around Ankara. The leading manufacturers are chemicals, food, beverages, and tobacco, and textiles, clothing, and footwear. In the Middle East, Turkey is the biggest steel producer. Main plants are at Karabük, Ereğli, and Skanderun. Several sites are involved in small-scale non-ferrous metallurgy, including Göktaş, Ergani, and Antalya. And since the 70s and 80s, the engineering industry has expanded dramatically with major concentrations in Istanbul, Izmir, and Ankara. Moreover, textiles make up the majority of manufacturing jobs. There are a lot of factories in the cotton-growing districts on the Adana Plain and in the Buyuk Menderes Valley, but textile production goes on in most regional cities. A lot of agricultural products are processed here too, and tobacco manufacturing is mainly in the Black Sea and Aegean regions, and sugar production in beet-growing regions. However, apart from this, the Turkish economy has been fueled by foreign trade since World War II, until the 1960s. Most exports came from agriculture, and most imports were machinery, transportation equipment, and manufactured goods. With the manufacturing sector expanding, basic and miscellaneous manufactures now account for more than half of exports. In terms of exports, textiles, yarns, fabrics, and clothing lead, followed by iron and steel, fruits and vegetables, livestock products, tobacco, and machinery, whereas imports include machinery, chemicals, petroleum, products, transportation equipment, and consumer goods. Nearly half of all trade is with Europe, where Germany is the biggest trading partner. Russia and China are major traders, and Turkey also trades a lot with countries in the Middle East, like the United Arab Emirates, Iraq, Algeria, and Israel. Now talking about the transportation. Since the establishment of the Republic, and especially since World War II, the state has invested heavily in transportation. Up until the 1950s, much of this investment went into the railway network. But in the 20th century, it focused on the roads and highways. Before World War I, the only long-distance rail link stretched from Istanbul to Adana and into Iraq. It was part of a German plan for an overland link between Europe and the Persian Gulf. Other early rail lines connected agricultures to ports on the Aegean and the Sea of Marmara, mostly in the west. In the interwar period, the State Railway Company built several lines to link key regional hubs, notably a line connecting Ankara, Kayseri, Sivas, and Erzurum with the Soviet frontier, with branches to the Black Sea at Samsun and Zonguldak. Another line connected Konya, Kayseri, Sivas, and Malatya with Diyarbakir and the Raman oil field. The major development of the post-war period was the construction of a line from Elazig to the Iranian frontier, which involved a train ferry across Lake Van and was part of an ambitious plan to provide a rail connection between Europe and Pakistan. In spite of these improvements, the rail network is still rudimentary. In the 1990s, railroads carried a lot of freight, mostly agricultural produce and minerals, and relatively few passengers. By the early 21st century, rail was only used by a tiny fraction of passengers. Freight transportation also barely used it. As a result, the Marmara project was launched to improve approximately 45 miles, 75 kilometers of Turkey's railways. The massive transport project was supposed to boost rail service around Istanbul and build a rail tunnel beneath the Bosporus to connect the European and Asian parts of the city. However, it got stalled in 2006 when a 4th century port was found in the construction zone. Now, roads are by far the biggest carriers of both freight and passengers. Besides domestic traffic, there is a lot of international shipping between Europe and the Middle East via Turkey. It's possible because the state built a modern road network connecting all the cities, and most of the shipping along the Black Sea coast goes by coastal routes. The main ports are Istanbul, Izmir, Mersin, İçel, İskenderun, and Izmit. So even after the war, the country has gained a lot of wealth from its production. Although Turkey isn't among the wealthy countries, after all the crisis, it's still growing. And that's it for today's video. We hope you liked the video. Make sure to hit the thumbs up button and do not forget to subscribe to the channel for more such videos. And this is us signing off for now. We'll catch you in the next one. Until then, peace.